I'm going to call to order for the zoning commission at 6:42. Last week we had went over the zoning plan and talked about trying to find an attorney. Did anybody have any questions or concerns from the notes that were posted from last week? Brady? Grant?
No.
Audrey? Ben?
Nope.
Ben? Okay. All right, so the good news is, for those of you that were here during the meeting, you might have heard me say, but we did hear back from the attorney that helped with Jackson and Wellston's revisions of their zoning, and it is what they do, and they are putting together, wrong text, a proposal for us. It is Crossroads Community Planning is the law firm. She works with townships in the past that had no zoning in place and helped them implement the zoning plan. She's supposed to get a proposal to us this week with information and pricing. So as soon as I receive that, we will put it up on the post, and I will send out a text that it's there so we can all take a look. So that's huge news, and it takes a big load off of us as far as what we have to do. I think it changes our approach a little bit.
Where are their offices?
I do not know. Grant, will you look that
Let me
up?
look it up real quick, yeah.
Please. So Bailey is at the township trustee meeting this evening and going to inquire with them about looking into any funding that they might be able to get us. And then, we'll be on the hook for whatever's left. And we may have to reach out to the community for help or decide how we're going to obtain those funds, but we'll cross that bridge here probably next week. So with that being said, and us, looking like we're going to be able to have an attorney, leaving last week's meeting, I feel like we maybe need to step back and, I definitely think we need to define residential for what we want that to look like in our township. But I think since a lot of this wording and stuff is going to be taken care of by the attorney, that we should focus on the last 2 pages of the community vision, because that's still going to require our input to the attorney about what is our future land use goals, what are we trying to preserve, and what do we want our township to look like long term. And then once we hear back from that attorney, did you find out where they're from, sir?
Yeah, the greater Columbus area, Lithopolis, Ohio.
And again, that came, they came to us through recommendation from the cities. So, any comments? I want to make sure everyone's feelings on that is heard. Comments or concerns about where we are with that? Like I said, we'll know more once we get their proposal.
I agree with you on that. I think it's fine that we get rid of that entire document, to be honest with you, because it's all a lot of what ifs and what do we needs to do. And
the comprehensive plan that is after Article 10A.
Yeah.
I think that gives us a blueprint for things that we're going to want to have in our comprehensive plan. Because that is what.
It's the pretext to
and
our
that's what a
regulations.
judge would say, okay, they've said this entity isn't allowed to be in their township, and this entity either does or doesn't match with what they've said they want in their comprehensive plan. So that's why that feedback's so important. So right now, are we okay if I go ahead and start working on our comprehensive plan? So the Scioto Township shall remain a agriculture and residential community centered on farming, homesteading, outdoor recreation, low-density residential living, and locally owned businesses. The outdoor recreation, I have a question mark on.
I think it's too broad.
I agree. Because that could cover everything from, you know, ATV trails and motor vehicles, to hunting, fishing, trapping, bird watching.
Well, are you gonna, if you feel about that, the ATVs, all the trails and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What if somebody wants to put a recreational park there? We don't want to try to limit them and avoid it.
Nope, we don't. They just have to come to the township and say, hey, I want to do an ATV park, and they'll say, great, we'll meet with the zoning commission and see if that's something that we can make a variance for.
I think we have to be real careful about
That's-
discouraging businesses.
See,
from
that's
coming.
I agree with
my,
that.
and that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, is because I feel that if you start doing that, you're already discouraging somebody from coming in and doing that.
Okay, I do want to remind everyone that zoning is not new. It's
I know
just
it's not
new
new.
to us. So if people have had businesses in other areas, they've had to go through the step of showing up to
necessarily.
someone.
No.
Not that, no.
The majority.
What if they don't have zoning?
Well,
You think we're the only township in Ohio that doesn't have zoning?
No, I think we're probably about a quarter of the state doesn't have zoning, which means again, the majority does, which is what I said, the majority, which means more than 50%. 75% of the state is zoned. What I'm saying is if you are a business, it is not out of the realm of, I don't think it's too much of an inconvenience to go to a township trustee, zoning committee and say, this is what we would like to propose. Because if they're doing it in Jackson, they're going somewhere. If you're doing it,
You can't compare a township to a city. It's two different
what I'm
things.
comparing is a business wanting to go somewhere where it's zoned. You have to go to the zoning board and ask for the variance. It's part of the process, just like you have to go to a
No,
bank.
you don't. If that, it only has to go get a variance if it's a variance item.
Right.
In the town, there's all the areas set up that you would never have to go to a zoning board of appeals.
Say that again.
I could go open a business downtown Jackson right now. It would not have to go to the zoning board of appeals.
If you opened it in a business district that was already zoned for business, if you wanted to
Yeah.
open it somewhere else, you would have to go to a zoning board of
now
appeals.
Only if I go somewhere where it's not.
Right,
But
and here,
that-
and here,
that
and
contradicts
here.
what you said, is because we can go here and we don't have to go to it in its zone. What we are doing is making it harder for businesses to come to this township.
We don't have any business districts here,
We don't.
and
Correct.
so if you try to limit and say, hey, he wants to build a track,
Right,
he's gonna have to go to the zoning board and get a variance.
he would.
No,
Because
we don't have a business district.
Right, which
And-
means any business would come and ask for a variance because we don't have a business district.
So that's gonna immediately discourage businesses from coming.
That'll also mean in the same context, and this is in the same context of what you're doing right now, what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
I get a couple backers and find somebody wants to sell me a acre of property right there in the corner of Glade Road, and I want to put a convenience store in, a gas station. That means I'm going to have to go get a variance to build that gas station.
Correct, yes. You will have to attend a meeting or two. Yep.
That's discouraging anybody from even bringing a business in this.
Okay. Let's hear from the other three sitting members.
Well, I don't disagree. It does add some resistance, but if you have a business and a business plan and you're willing to make money, I mean, you're going to have to, organize your business. You have to get insurance. All those things discourage business too, by your definition, do they not?
Insurance? No.
Because that's not an inconvenience, like everyone likes to go do that.
It's one phone call.
It's one meeting.
No, it's not.
How do you know that?
Because I've been to them.
You've been to what?
It's what my dad does.
What?
It's the zoning appeal stuff. This would take months. And you don't just walk in and go, hey, I'd like to do this. And then they go, okay, no, that's not how it works. There'll be multiple meetings. It'll probably take 3 or 4 months. Because then, once they do it, we got to find out too, is then what they're going to have to do. Then they got to go back to them. Then we got to do it. Then they got to come to the next meeting. Then they go, oh, we want to change this. Then it goes back to, it could take 6 months or a year.
Well,
And at that
it
point,
takes
maybe
time.
they
It
say,
takes
I'm not
time to
gonna do
make
it.
money. Grant, what's your opinion?
I
buddy?
have my question is this. So I want to know what's legally required by the state of Ohio, because we have the flexibility to run the appeals program within the statutes that are required by the state. So my question is this: how many appeals hearings do we have to have? Does there have to be a public commenting period? Does there even have to be any public input at all?
Well,
so that's my
here's-
question. I want to read the Ohio Revised Code and see what the reasonability of having every business that wants to come here have a variance as well. And I do see the side of it where, you know, I don't want to discourage business.
Right.
And again, I think the entire purpose of the zoning regulation in the first place is to stop oversized industrialized businesses
Correct.
with the general terms that are in the document. I don't think it should be that we should have the opportunity to tell people it's like, hey, you can't do this housing development. Hey, you can't do this outdoor recreation thing because we don't want it. Again, we're here for the purpose of stopping massive industrialization. I think we should keep it at that. And if these things become a problem at a later date, then we can have an amendment to the zoning regulations that the public has comment period on as well.
I'll add this too. I mean, in addition to everything you said, the original intent was to keep it concise, right? So
Right.
we're trying to zone as agriculture,
Right.
and then the variance opens up the door to everything else. Where
Right.
if you want to be descriptive, you're going to end up with a 2,000-page document where you have
That's
a
what I'm
section,
afraid.
a section for every gas station, a section
Right.
for this business, that business.
That's what
every
I'm
single
afraid
thing.
that
So
is
to
gonna
keep it
happen. We start
concise, it was the idea
discouraging
was,
everything.
yeah. So we zone it agriculture, and then everything is open to a variance at the discretion of the zoning commission. Is that right? Is
Well,
That
is that
was
fair to
that
say?
was the original idea, is that we zone agriculture and residential, and anything else would have to go through the process.
Well, in that same context, the Amish want to build another little furniture shop or a buggy shop.
Yeah.
That means they're going to have to come to us and get a variance to be able to even.
Correct. If it's not already existing, yes, you're right. And the Amish have no problem going through this process. That's part of what we've talked about in the meetings on Wednesdays.
I just,
Because their businesses do not create any of the issues. It doesn't infringe on your neighbors. It doesn't affect anyone else's quality of life. It's not something that is loud, pollutes, uses our natural resources excessively, or does any of the things that like we've decided as a community we want to keep out. So there would be no reason, just like a gas station. There'd be no reason to not block that. Or I'm sorry, to block that. You know, we want, everyone sitting right here wants the same thing. We want Scioto Township to grow and have income, but within the character that we want to have. Now, I understand that we don't want to inconvenience or discourage business, but the fact of the matter is we're zoning. That means that there is going to have to be a new process if you want to be something other than agriculture. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be complicated. That doesn't mean it has to be something that we drag on and don't say, hey, we want to work with everybody that comes in here that supports all the things in our zoning and in our community. But the nature of what we're doing and what we all signed up to work on together requires a process. That's how this works.
So how long is this process going to be? Because I could say if my personal company was here and it was going to take a year, I would take my company elsewhere. I would not do it here for a year.
I
Because it would
would
be
think that
entirely
a
too
year,
long.
and I agree with you. I think a year would be
well,
extremely
even 6 months is
excessive.
too long to be.
I agree
That's
with
a
you.
long period of time.
I agree. I think that's something that we've got to figure out what that timeline is. You know, do we have to go with only once a month meetings like the trustees do? Can we continue, can the Board of Appeals meet every 2 weeks and shorten that process? I don't know what that looks like.
So you guys do realize that we're not the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I do realize that,
And
yes.
just because we're on this committee does not mean that we will. in the
None of
end-
us are allowed to be on the zoning board of appeals.
Are these questions though your attorney's gonna be able to answer for you? Like how?
Yes,
long it take?
I believe so, yes. What I would like to accomplish here is listing out what we want our long-term land use to be for the community.
Cause I know in the paper, Jackson right now has went through three rezonings so people could do certain things.
Right.
And it didn't appear, from what I've seen or read, that it was more than a meeting or two.
Right.
That took care of it.
Yeah, and they announced in the paper, we'll have a zoning board of appeals
Right.
meeting. So yeah, I mean, I think that.
Would you like some guardrails?
It's a minimum of 2 months. Because you have to go to the meeting, then they have to make a public notice, and then they have to go to another meeting. That's the minimum.
And they have to have when they do that public notice, that next meeting
Has to
is
be
where the
30
public
days
has to
after
be
that.
able to voice their opinion. Then they got 30 days to do everything. And so you're looking basically 2.5 months, 3 months minimum before you even get a chance to even get an answer.
Well, I mean, it takes about that to get a mortgage, so I think that's pretty reasonable.
I
90
think,
days.
I don't know, I think, I'll give my thoughts on it. I think that our land use plan should be broad. I think that we should have a broad land use plan that encompasses what is currently here and explicitly mentions that, even if it is a broad term or not. And then if we need specifics, it'll be in the regulations. And the specifics should, with our intent and with what we've told the public and with what we've thought this entire time, is to preserve the agricultural and rural prospects of where we live, which does not include massive industrial development. I think that should be our main focus and concern. And if something in the future comes to be a problem, like now, we can definitely amend the zoning regulations. That's definitely a possibility. Imagine, let's say I don't know, this is probably extremely unlikely to happen, but the people who own NASCAR tracks wanted to build a giant NASCAR track and buy up fields and start doing that. If we wanted to determine that was outside of our character and we want to put regulations on that, then we can amend the zoning resolution before they purchase the property and do that. Because there would be a time period in which people would be receiving offers and they would be publishing the plans and communicating with people, maybe even communicating with us to make sure that it's within regulation. So,
But then they have a vested interest. That's a very tricky.
well, that's if they buy the property in time.
That's a very tricky.
But again,
I still like the idea of zoning agriculture and residential. We can definitely talk to the attorney about what making a commercial district is, but then we're restricting people that want to build to only build in that area. So, I mean, which would we rather restrict? Where they can build, or that it might take 90 days to 120 days for them to get an answer on if they can build. So,
I think we need to talk to the attorney on what the actual appeals looks
The
like.
parameters that we can go with.
Because if it's that, a circumstance in which a large city takes, 3 months, that might make sense because they have so many applicants and such limited resources. But for somewhere out here, I mean, if the law permits it, could we just have an impromptu meeting if somebody wants to create a business and give them permission to do so? We need to figure it
You
out.
still gotta follow the timetable. that you-
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they have set up parameters in the ORC of when you meet the board, when a decision has to be made, when a public,
But you could put a limit on when it starts, right? The first meeting must be within 10 days of application, something like that. So it guarantees that the process.
I actually
starts.
think it's 20 days is what the ORC says. I mean, there's a process laid out. And I know,
I didn't read anything in the ORC that said there's a date from, specific amount of time from the time they make their application, because otherwise 20 days, if they made it 2 days after our meeting, and we meet once a month, then we'd have to hold a
We'd
special
have,
meeting.
we'd have to have a meeting,
And-
yep. Not we, the Board of Appeals. You wouldn't be on
Well,
that.
Yeah, they wouldn't be going to the Board of Appeals.
Yes,
Yeah.
Every time.
every time. Every time. Does the trick every time. Yeah, we create the plan.
I know we created
The
the
Board of Appeals really does, like, once the plan's in place, the enforcer and the Board of Appeals are really the operating mechanism once it's in place. So with everything that we have said here, the community vision of farming, homesteading, outdoor recreation, residential living, and locally owned businesses, other than needing to firm up some of those definitions, does that all fall into what we define as what our community is centered on? Farming, homesteading, outdoor recreation, residential living, locally owned businesses. I do not know the legality of the township, does not intend to develop into an industrial, suburban, or urbanized area. Definitely love that line if it's legal, but if it's not, you know, she'll take that out.
I think the small locally owned business is gonna have to come out because it's too big.
Just too vague.
Yeah, and I think we let her know that, like, we want to encourage businesses, like, we don't want to discourage growth of businesses. We just want to be able to have a hand in what type of businesses we want to welcome into the community. And then I think she can probably figure out how that's best worded or defined.
I was trying to look up for like a state or federal definition for that, and I could not find one. So it's very open-ended.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and look through the land use goals list and see if there's any that we egregiously disagree with or want to add to. For the crowd, I'll read them. Preserve agriculture land and open spaces. Maintain low-density rural development patterns. Encourage small local businesses compatible with rural life. Prevent large-scale industrial development incompatible with township character. Protect residents from excessive noise, traffic, light pollution, and environmental disruption. Preserve the quiet enjoyment, safety, and natural character of the township. Preserve and support small locally owned fabrication, repair, agricultural support, mechanical, tradesman businesses historically associated with rural communities. Audrey, thoughts?
I know we've already talked about this, the quiet hours, defining noise, going over traffic, what you consider to be excessive. So have we even decided on what that looks like for when we turn this into the attorney to go through with that? Light pollution, what do you consider that? What do you consider environmental disruption? Is that moving soil, certain areas?
Right.
What are we doing there?
So if we look at number 5 as a whole, the overall point of of number 5 is preserving the way it is now, right? So like not noise, overnight, continuous, the traffic. Basically, these are things that we've identified that would come from industries that would disrupt the neighbor's quality of life, right? So there's got to be a way that...
Because if we do the noise, there's a possibility that anybody with grain bins can't turn them on
At night.
at night.
With what, I'm sorry?
Said if you, depending on the decibel level you set it at, there's a possibility that the end result could be that no farmer in the township could turn their grain bins on at night.
Well, remember, agriculture is excluded from any zoning.
No, not all of it. That is not in the production. That's to maintain it. I bet you that they would some crafty lawyer is gonna,
To me, that falls under agriculture. But
it's not going to.
well, what is a grain bin used for if it's not agriculture?
It's not used in the production, it's used in the maintenance.
Right? Of agriculture.
The maintenance, but it's not production.
It's not production.
It's storage.
It's not
And
production.
storage is not,
I'm not gonna
Right.
argue the definition of agriculture. You guys can read it. It's a 3-page definition. It starts off section 519. I am sure a grain bin to house grain to sell on an agricultural market is under the definition of agriculture. However, if it is a concern, I'm sure at the time that we need to, we can set a decibel amount above if a grain bin disqualifies as a piece of agriculture equipment. I think the overall point of step 5 is we don't want the industrial noise. If it's not this way we say it, we can tell the attorney, this is what we are trying to achieve with this step, help us wordsmith it. But yes, to your point, Audrey, I think like defining all those, if we leave it this way, that's where it comes into play. We maybe don't want to leave it this way.
It'll be defined in the regulations. So like,
Yeah.
again, this is just talking about what we want, like what the township wants. And again, I think the word excessive is pulling some weight here. You know, I would say that excessive in this context would mean more than what we're used to.
Right.
So I think all of these fall in the last bullet point, environmental
Yeah.
disruption.
Disruption, yeah.
So you could probably just get rid of 5 and then 6 would cover what we're looking to do.
Those fall in there. And then,
And I like 6.
I do too. I don't think we need quiet enjoyment, but because it's not really what is your enjoyment?
I want
Mine personally would be on 4th of July having fireworks and doing.
Right.
We ride four-wheelers. We do all the things. We go out hunting. All these
that's
things.
why
So
I think
like,
a lot of this falls into like duration and frequency, but
it's just
Right.
like very vague.
yeah.
You just want to mark out anything that doesn't actually define what you mean.
I want to address the concern about protecting agricultural activity, even if it is protected in the Ohio Revised Code. I would propose that we reach out to this attorney that we're looking to have actually create the regulations and piece by piece put exactly what we want to exempt under that section as well, to make sure that it's in writing beyond just what the Ohio Revised Code says, in case somebody who is a crafty lawyer would want to come in and try to target people who are doing agricultural activities.
There's many
Yeah.
of those.
Yes, so I think that we can definitely have the attorney address that, but again, we're looking at the section here of like what we generally want our township to be and sort of trying to define the place that we live in right now as a pretext to the actual document. So that there's like a contextual understanding of how the rules are applied and why they're applied that way. Whenever they go to write the actual big full document later with each line item of the specific restrictions. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not losing my mind.
No, I think what we're trying to achieve here is to set up what the vision of the community is to maintain in our township. The specifics come in another part of the resolution, not that we won't have to address those, and address what that means specifically. But I think to paint a picture for an attorney from Columbus of what we want and is important for us to keep and preserve. I assume that would look a lot different than probably her environment at night, And then number 7, I don't know if we have to break it down like that.
I mean, do we have a problem with number 7? I think
Yeah,
number
I
7
don't
would
have a
cover
problem
the
with it.
businesses that we have here. I mean, would you guys disagree with that at all? Because that covers Wiseman Brothers, that covers Henderson's, that covers pretty much everybody that's not
I think
explicitly
the idea
agricultural.
is good. I would go back to the lawyer because
Yeah.
it's also very vague.
Absolutely.
Because somebody could take that as we wanna protect the local businesses and not encourage new business.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those, it's a, in premise, it's a good idea, but the wording might need tweaked just a little bit.
You think we could amend that to put protect, support, and encourage? I think the word encourage would invite the new formation of those types of businesses. I'll write that down.
We're still talking number 7, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And what was the wording you were just,
Encourage.
To add encourage to it. So currently it says to,
Preserve and support.
correct, yeah. So we would put preserve, support, and encourage.
Okay, I just didn't want to move too fast. Everybody was kind of writing
I'm just
or
reading.
making notes, so I didn't want to move too fast. For future land use, they also say long-term land use. Both terms I've seen interchangeably there. The entire township shall remain agriculture and residential in character. The township recognizes that small locally owned fabrication, repair, agricultural support, mechanical and tradesman businesses have historically existed within rural communities and are compatible with the agriculture and residential character of Scioto Township when conducted at a scale appropriate to surrounding land uses. Scioto Township finds that the township is historically rural and agriculture in nature. Existing roads and infrastructure are limited in scale. Emergency services are designed primarily for rural, residential, and agricultural uses. Preservation of farmland and open space promotes the public welfare. Low-density land use patterns preserve the quiet enjoyment of property. We'll X quiet. And large-scale industrial development may substantially alter the rural character, environmental conditions, traffic patterns, and infrastructure demands of a township. And we might even be able to put like, discourage any development that may substantially alter
No.
and not, you know.
You don't wanna do that, cause then that's targeting people.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we have a legality question on some of those that are hitting directly of like, we don't want you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much so.
The township further finds that preserving rural agriculture residential land use patterns promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of township residents. Large-scale industrial development is inconsistent with the comprehensive land use. I don't think we
So
need
you
to
need to take that out, cause
Yep.
there isn't one.
Agreed. Okay. So, I mean, I agree with those comments and the way those are said.
Does anyone disagree with that, other than the last sentence, obviously, since it would be possibly targeting? Does everyone agree that that is the general character that we want to have for the future of our township?
I think so.
I'm in
Okay.
agreement. Anybody out there hear anything you disagreed with?
The only thing I would question is the low density stuff.
Yeah.
That needs to be defined.
Yeah, and I think so, you know, walking away from last week, I think the obligation to define the residential categories is gonna be up to us. You know, coming out of the planning commission, the county standard is one house, like your septic, your lot has to be 1.5 acres for a single family, well, for the septic. I don't know so I do think that at some point we're going to have to define our levels of residential. I don't really see any reason to get into that conversation until we meet with the attorney. But my thinking right now is we're already operating on the county standard in the township because we have no other standard, obviously. So, you know, my suggestion would be to keep with the county standard for our step one, like for our low density, because if we make it an acre and the health department doesn't even allow that, then what are we doing? That doesn't even make sense. So that's my thinking on it, but I definitely think that that's something, you know, she's gonna know what other townships our size have done maybe and how they've done it. And I think we can learn a lot from her expertise on those types of things. So, I mean, I really think that we should probably meet again once we hear from the lawyer and know back from, like, let's meet next week. We'll know back from Bailey. We'll have our proposal from the attorney. And then, you know, we need to figure out a consultation with her, I think would be our most advantageous move right now. Does anybody have a difference of opinion or one of
It's all
Mm-hmm.
gonna depend on what our consultation fee is
Exactly. Yeah.
and what we can do with that.
Yeah. So I think this week we'll learn a lot about that once we get her information back.
Okay.
Who's she supposed to email that to?
Joey Jones is the one that she's emailing it to. In his message to us, because he is on vacation, said that as soon as he gets it, he will forward it to me and Grant. And I'm sure Grant can put it on Proton
Yeah.
before I can even turn my computer on and figure out which way what window I'm opening. So as soon as we get it, it'll go on the public site or the our shared drive, and then I'll text the group that it's on there for when anybody wants to look, and then that will probably generate some conversation on our text thread. But
Can I
yeah, please.
Can I
go.
assign some homework for us
Yep.
for next week's meeting? We need to, first and foremost, figure out how we can raise funds for the township so we don't have to deprive taxpayers of additional money whenever we try to get this attorney. So I think that should be number one, figure out what fundraising methods we could use for the township. Number two, I think we need to look at the process of the appeals board and what that looks like. I think we need to have a contextual understanding of that within the Ohio Revised Code. So I think those two things are really important. Other than that, I can't really think of anything that we need before we talk to the attorney.
So the appeals board function and process
Yes.
timeline, like so that we know
We need to know what we're
if
allowed to
it's a
do
true
with that.
burden or if we can streamline that for.
Yes.
That's a good idea. All right, and then as soon as we hear from the attorney, we'll pass it out and then review that and go from there. And then as Bailey as well, the meeting was at 7 tonight, so he's probably still there. So I will, any information he sends me, I'll forward it out on the text thread.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right, no, you're fine. No, so I
I'm serving for
will,
Joe.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. We are adjourned at 7:21.